Welcome to the Secret Grove session. By the time you're done with this session, you're going to understand why we chose to put a raw black in with the green teas. So that's one important thing you'll know. And then you'll also have a deeper understanding, particularly of this raw black in relationship to other raw blacks. So before we get on to that, I want to talk a little bit about shop news. So shop news this week, we've been very busy trying to get teas up on the board. And we have all the greens up on the board. We have all the whites up on the board. We also have all the new yellows on the board. We don't have all the new reds yet. So we're working on that. Next week, by week's end, you'll start to see some new cliff teas on the board.
So how many new teas did you manage to get in, and how did you do it?
So the question is, how many new teas did we bring in this year? And how in the world, given the fact that most tea purveyors are having trouble getting tea out of China, did we manage to do that? So we're going to have approximately 50 new teas this year. We had more than 50 last year. We're continuing in the same trend, and we're going to be able to continue in the same trend so long as anybody is able to get tea from China. And the main reason, the thing that really differentiates us from most tea purveyors, lots of tea purveyors have a little bit in, and you'll notice actually in most places where they're selling Chinese teas, there's a marked decline in how much they're able to bring in. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the most important reason is not having the right relationships in order to make this happen. Remembering here, we have the right relationships. These relationships have built over a 20-year period. We built them with the farmers, but that's not really the key relationship. Many purveyors will tell, oh yeah, I got this with this master and that master, and don't listen to that. That's not an accurate, or that's not a deepened version of how you build these relationships. Of course, it's important to have relationships with the farmers, but that's not it. You need to have relationships with the whole tea industry in China. Furthermore, you need to have, and this is the critical thing, you need to have relationships with the scientists. If you don't have relationships with the scientists, these are the agricultural scientists, of course. I'm not talking about modern quantum physicists, although it's not bad to have those type of relationships because they explain how the world actually exists. So that's a good thing. However, what we're talking about and what makes the difference for us is that the scientists, agricultural scientists in China, have all the keys to the kingdom. What does this mean? What it really means is since the 1980s, the Chinese National Academy of Sciences has decided that tea and the making of tea and the craft of tea from over the various categories is a cultural asset. And as such, they've assigned the agricultural institutes and scientists the tasks of recording all the modes of making the tea and truly understanding the process of that. And that's why I say that these scientists really have the keys to the kingdom. I'll give you an example. This year, we're getting in a tea from an unnamed mountain. They won't tell us where this mountain is because it's not open to the public. It's not even open to the Chinese public. That's how unnamed it is. And yet, where this mountain is, the people who are responsible, by the way, essentially nobody's living on this mountain. It is in Yunnan. I at least know that much. And what happened is that the people who administer this mountain, they had scientists come in and start to do analysis of plants and so forth, and they found ancient trees there, ancient tea trees. And so scientists were able to, this was 2 or 3 years ago, they discovered this. They've gone back subsequently. We asked very politely if we might have a little sample from this mountain, and they sent us more than a little sample. Darn costly, but we've got 20 cakes from this mountain. So this is, and we're the only ones. This is why having these relationships with scientists are so critical. All right, enough said. Let's move forward and talk about Secret Grove, a raw black. All right. What's the relationship between black and green? I mean, when I look at my color palette, I can see black is dark, doesn't seem to reflect much light. Green, bright, reminds you of nature. How come there's a relationship in the tea world between green and raw black? So by the way, if you don't have that modifier at the beginning, there is not this relationship between green and black. The process of raw black is as follows. So you pick the leaves, and in Secret Grove case, it's from ancient tea trees. So let's define for everybody, especially those who are new to the broadcast. In Yunnan, they define without argument, old trees are up to from 100 years to about 800 years. Ancient trees are from 800 years or older. Now, there are some arguments about that. And one of the arguments is it should be defined as 1,000 years or older. So you have this discussion point. Is it 800 or is it 1,000? We use 1,000 in the shop. But don't be confused, because some people make a mistake in relationship to talking about old and ancient. And they do, it's not intentional, by the way. This isn't an LCS problem. This is a problem of sometimes in English, they're thinking old, ancient, well, that doesn't make that much difference. Well, actually, it does. It makes a definitional difference when you're talking about tea. So this tea is from ancient tea trees. These are over 1,000 years old. And in a minute, for those of you who just are coming onto the broadcast and perhaps you didn't look at your email, there's a map that I'd like you to pull up. We won't talk about right yet, but we're going to talk about within 2 or 3 minutes. So the process is you pick, and usually you pick a bud, and there's not much of a bud left unless you're picking a very early pick, because almost all the leaves have opened up. So you pick one, and if it's very good quality, very high grade, you pick 1 and 2 leaves. Usually it's 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 leaves. You bring it into the production area, you wither it. You wither it for any length of time that the farmer deems necessary. So usually on average, what that length of time is going to be somewhere between 4 hours and 2 days. So you can have withering that occurs over a 2 and even occasionally a 3-day period. So I know you're all thinking, they probably wither outdoor. They do wither outdoor. Does this mean they just leave this stuff outdoor at night so that the geckos and all the other creatures in Yunnan, which are quite a lot, have a little field to play on? The answer is no. They bring all that stuff indoors because they don't want the next morning to find snakes or anything in the tea. Very inconvenient to find anything in the tea that doesn't really belong. They put it indoors, then during the day they put it outdoors. The other reason that they have to have this capability is, what if it rains? You cannot wither tea outdoors if it rains. Again, what's the purpose of withering? It's to have the sunlight bring out moisture from the tea leaf. You want to reduce the moisture in the tea leaf. So if when you pick it, it's 100, when you process it, you want it to be anywhere from about 70 at the high mark to about 50 at the low mark. What happens if you're in a hurry and you're lazy? Oh, I want to just wither this until 10% of the water is out, and then I'm gonna go into the process because it'd be faster. I only have to wither for an hour. The whole issue with laziness in tea processing is you pay a penalty for not observing tradition in terms of tea processing. So if you wither when it's 90%, when you get to the rolling stage, it'll fall apart. The tea leaf will literally fall apart on you. That's not a good thing. That means you lose money. So you pick, you wither when it's at the point that the farmer feels the tea, and most tea leaves, and most of the time it's really smelling the tea leaves, but some use both feel and smell. And you feel, oh yeah, this is about the right area. Then you fry the leaves. Do you fry the leaves at the same temperature you fry green tea leaves? No. Green tea leaves are usually fried from 300 to 400, 450. The raw black is usually from about 180 up to 250. So there's a reason for this. Remember, it's raw black. Raw black is going to at some point go through a fermentation process. In order to be fermented, and remember, I didn't use the word oxidize, fermented. So fermentation implies critters. So you've got bacteria, yeast, molds, fungi. I suppose molds and fungi don't belong in the term critter. So that was a bad shorthand. Yes, and spiders more yes, that's exactly right. And fermentation has nothing to do with spiders, absolutely nothing. So these live elements cause changes by interacting with the tea leaf that influence taste. And with raw black, this is fermented in this natural way over a long period of time. And it's usually not, in quotes, fully fermented for 30 plus years. So hence, one of the reasons most of the fully fermented raw black never hits the US market. It's very hard, even in the Chinese market, to hit fully fermented through this natural fermentation process. So that's why, and so this discussion originated, well, why is there a difference in temperature in the frying of the leaves? Well, with green tea, you're not trying to ferment anything. So you want to get rid of everything. You want to get rid of the enzymes which cause oxidation. You just want it to come out clean and ready to be completely non-oxidized and on the market. With raw black, if using this temperature and frying for a shorter time, many of these microorganisms from the forest will fall into stasis. And later on, at the end of this process, when it becomes sun-dried, at the very last step, they wake up and start the fermentation. Yes.
haven't seen photos of tea in deep pots before. It looks like leaves are being mulled. So amongst the pictures you sent to participants,
Yes.
there must be a picture of tea in pots, deep pots.
Tea leaves, I
Tea
assume.
leaves, yeah.
Tea leaves in the pot. Ah, okay. I don't remember what that picture is, and I'll go back and look at it. And I'll tell you before the broadcast is over. But yes, in there, that's actually probably a holding pot rather. Oh, I know what that is. It's that metal pot. And what that is in preparation for being compressed. So for raw black and for fully fermented, you have an ability to create a tea cake. In order to do that, you've got to put it in a metal container, and eventually you compress the tea, you steam it as well, you compress the tea, and that's what creates the cake. That's what's really going on with that picture. I apologize, I blanked out on which picture I sent you, but as soon as I thought it through, that's exactly what you're seeing with that. Now here at the shop, we have the bulk of our raw black is loose leaf. Most places, you don't really see much loose leaf. You see quite a lot of cakes because it's easier to store. It's so much easier to store that way. But we like having it here loose leaf, so you can buy it in smaller quantities. And when it's in loose leaf like this, it will ferment faster. And you'll notice the change in flavor and aroma much faster than with the tea cakes. So we're still picking, and I'm still talking, and you're still thirsty. So at some point here, and give me 2 more minutes, and then I'll get the tea master up here in front of all of you. So we picked, we fried, afterwards we roll. Usually there's a hand roll, but some of the bigger facilities use a machine. After the roll, then we bake to remove a little bit more moisture. And actually, in most cases, traditionally, you really don't do that type of baking. You put it outside and let the sun do the work. The reason, again, it's so important to let the sun do the work is it wakes up those organisms. And that's what we call, and this is a term I use, nobody else uses this as far as I know. In Chinese, they say mao cha. What I say here is unfinished tea, or 70% tea. It gets to this point, and the producer has a decision. Do you want to go further and fully ferment artificially, or do you want to let it have this very slow, long fermentation process? All right, so I've gotten through the basic process. You've survived this at great thirst, and the tea master is very ready to help relieve that thirst. So without further ado, Xiaobei,
Yes.
Secret Grove.
Yes, Secret Grove. Yeah. It's from Hekai, so in Yunnan. So looking, this is my space today. It's changed a little bit, So how we use the tea tree.
Oh, I
So,
see. You
yeah,
changed the tea tree. Yeah, this one has a rock here. It's a granite. Yes, a piece of granite. Thank you. We've got some volcanic rock here. We've got tea toy here. The usual is if you were thinking about this like green tea, 2 large cups in the strainer. Remembering, of course, that we're going to use 175-degree water. So unlike fully artificially fermented tea where you use 200-degree water, this is 170. So
Ichili.
Oh, mistake. 170, not 175. And that's typical with ancient tree. Ancient tree, you tend to make slightly cooler. Okay, so the tea master is drawing the water and is going to dissipate the steam. And by the way, you see an area here where the water actually is able to drain off of this, and
Yeah,
then it
right,
drains
this
into
one,
the
yeah.
into the sink.
This one.
So this is a fun tea tray, also very heavy. So what's the purpose of dissipating the steam? A couple things. First off, you want to make sure that your cup is very, very clean. So no soap stains or anything like that remaining on the cup. So in addition to dissipating the steam, what you're doing is making sure everything is perfectly clean.
One set of water and then dissipate the steam of the water you use for the tea, right?
Yes, we typically obviously pre-clean the cup, if that's the question. And we usually, if we're in a formal setting, will use hotter water, 200-degree water, and clean the cup. Yes. But it doesn't matter. You can use, so just let's make this very clear. You can use anything between 175 and 212 to clean the water, clean the cup. All right, she puts the 6 grams of Secret Grove. It's already pre-measured in your package. Shakes it. This is a heated cup, so she gets the initial impression about what this is going to, what it may end up smelling and tasting like. Also to make sure it's the actual right tea. Always good to double check all the details. Pours on the side. Remember, you don't want to scald the leaves if you can avoid it. So you pour on the side. And you start the 2 minutes. Okay, so that's about the map I sent you this morning, because this is important. This comes from yes. This,
Slight video problem here, nothing,
Okay.
not you,
Okay.
just the device.
Okay.
Let's give it a moment.
okay.
Yep, sorry, folks. Just a little problem with the connection here. Quirkiness of the stuff that we have to use. All right, this should be right. We are back.
Great. I needed a little rest anyway, and so this was perfect. So what we're going to do is talk about the map I sent you. So I have it in front of me. I hope you have yours in front of you. And again, this is something I sent to everybody first thing this morning. Well, not exactly first thing this morning, but before this session. So I want to show you, and this is a map of only Xishuangbanna. So Xishuangbanna Prefecture borders Burma. It's in Yunnan. It borders Burma. The Mekong River flows through Xishuangbanna. And on this map, it's listed as Lancang River, Lamcang River. And it's in, and I noticed they spelled river a different way. That's okay. I spelled it correctly. It's in blue, so you can't miss it. Timer has gone off. We'll be back to this map in a minute. So you separate the tea leaves from the tea liquid. And this is what you should end up with. So take a look at the color of this. So it's a yellowish, greenish color. Actually, I should have said that the other way around, a greenish, yellowish color. So that's the first thing you notice. And you smell the leaves first. And you take a look at these leaves. So this has a very characteristic raw black look and smell. So right away, you're looking at these leaves. They're pretty darn green. They're dark green, but they're green. And they have a little yellowish in them. You smell them. You're going to tell me what the aroma is. And we're going to go through the quality arena now. We're going to go to the quality arena. And we're going to go through the steps to determine what the astringency is of this tea, the mouthfeel of this tea, also an aftertaste, and the energetics. What are energetics again? Energetics have to do with the feeling that you get, the physical feeling you get after drinking the tea. All right, so I'm going to smell the tea and go ahead and take a 170-degree sip, which is large enough to cover my tongue, and swirl it around in my mouth. My goodness. All right, this is distinct. So I'm thinking about where I'm feeling astringency in this one. I'm thinking about the degree of astringency. I definitely get an aftertaste in this. I don't yet sense the energetics, although I sense them starting to try to occur, but I don't sense it yet. I'm going to take a second sip here. Okay, I have a pretty good sense of what this is presenting. The other thing that I'm starting to think about is what I am detecting from a flavor and aroma perspective, because after you get through the quality characteristics, you want to be able to talk about flavor and aroma, and you want to analyze, and you particularly want to take note of flavor at the very beginning and flavor as it develops, if it develops, as you drink down into the cup. Now, why did I say if it develops? Because some teas present a certain way at the beginning and are consistent all the way through. Others present a certain way at the beginning, and as you go through, more complexity arises. The other thing, by the way, in the quality arena, and I am going to take one more sip, is to determine denseness, thickness, or thinness of what the tea is presenting you. Okay, it's your turn. Tea Master will brew with you. Remember to set your timer for 2 minutes. Tea Master is making sure everything is clean.
Yes.
She's going to use 200-degree water to go ahead and make sure that any previous taste that there may have been on that cup goes away. And by the way, just because I say something or somebody else says something about quality characteristics or energetics doesn't mean that you'll necessarily 100% feel that. You might feel it 50% or 80%, or even not feel it. does this mean that your tongue is damaged? No, it does not mean that. It means that we all have different genetics, different genomic characteristics, and that causes us to detect some sense of these things that we're talking about. And that sense will not be the same. It will not be exactly the same for everybody. So obviously, there is an out of bounds for this. So if you, again, tell me, oh yeah, this tastes garlicky, that's out of bounds. It does not taste garlicky. All right, so she's making sure that the water is dissipated, the steam is dissipated.
One more time.
Let's do it one more time.
So
She's taking
we'll use
package
this one, yeah.
number 3, Secret Grove, pre-measured to 6 grams. Putting it in the cup, she's going to shake it. Smell it. Oh yeah, that's really Secret Grove. Make sure that those leaves are on the side, and then pour as much as possible on the side of the cup. Try and get under the leaves, and then start the timer for 2 minutes. All right. And as you're doing, as soon as you finish doing this, and let's go back and look at this map for a second more, because I want to show you where this comes from. So these are all tea mountains that are listed here. So if you look at this map, in the center, there's a place called Menghai, Menghai, and there's a black circle there, so it's pretty central. If you go directly south, there's a place called Hekai, Hekia. That's where this mountain is where this comes from. I'm going to talk about this mountain in a minute, but I direct your attention, go a little further south. There's something called Xinbanjiang, Xinbanzhang, and then look a little southerly, south, and then to the east. There's Laobanjiang, Laobanzhang. Now, the Laobanjiang is very nearly the most currently famous tea mountain in China. And usually at the wholesale level, when you go to the farm, you can expect to pay $4,000 or $5,000 per pound to get that tea. They have they have ancient tree, they have old tree, they have both, but at the top levels. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Your timer has gone off. And you're going to separate the tea leaves from the tea liquid. You notice Tea Master is not in a hurry. She's looking to do it carefully. Make sure that all the tea gets into the cup. And so yours should look something like this. It's a very pleasant color. Smell. Look at the leaves. These things are really beautiful. You've got green, you've got yellow, you got a little gold. Smell that stuff. Incredible. Okay, and then you're going to enter the quality arena. And by entering the quality arena, you're going to take a 170-degree sip and determine, okay, is this thing astringent? Is this thing have fullness? Is it thin? Is it thick? Is it juicy? All right, how does the swallow go? What kind of an aftertaste? Is there a coolness? Is there a flavored aftertaste, like a minty? And then energetics. So energetics is a wide range that you can explore. And it's, again, your body feel. How are you reacting? How is your body reacting? Being aware of how it's reacting to what you're drinking. Is it warming, cooling? Does it make you calm, make you jittery? I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities for words that you can use to describe energetics. And then, as you further drink this, you're going to talk about and think about, well, what flavor? What's in this thing? Did the tea master put cashews in this? Perhaps she slipped cashew essence in this? What is the flavor profile?
The steeped leaves had a mix of floral and vegetal scent as if it were two teas.
Love this comment. And this is going to be a key, and we're going to come back to this comment over and over again. This commentator says it's as if we did two teas. There's a hint of floralness and a hint of vegetalness, and it's both contained in that first sip. Good comment, by the way, and you'll see why as we move forward. I'm
And
sorry.
it's in the scent of it as the leaves were steeping, you could smell it.
Ah, this was in the scent, not in the taste. My bad.
No, another commenter adds, as the leaves get cooler, there's an essence of umami and a creaminess that comes out.
Good. So we're moving from the double scent of slightly floral and vegetal, and now through the taste, a taste of umami-ness and creaminess. Love both of those descriptions. I am going to fall particularly with the creaminess, because when you drink green teas as a contrast, generally speaking, they aren't this creamy. This is incredible. And is this creaminess related to the varietal? Is it related to the farmer who did this? Or is it related to the terroir where this is produced? Not where it's produced, where it's grown. It's more related to the terroir than anything else. The teas that you get from this particular mountain or set of mountains usually have that richness, that creaminess to them. That's a specialty of Hokkaido.
Another commenter says that she started with this forest meadow aroma of the dry leaves in the bag, and then it's just quite a journey from there.
Love this comment. So in the dry bag, this commentator smelt the leaves and had dry forest as the impression, and is noting that going through all the steps, brewing, tasting, smelling, there's a huge journey here. And I like the way you said that, because all great tasters think about the journey. And very few people talk about that who are in the tea industry, really talk enough about the journey, because it is a journey. When you get high grade tea, this is why you have to have tea room. Well, you don't have to have anything. You don't have to have anything, but it's best if you have tea room.
Another taster says this is like drinking a forest.
Love this comment. This is like drinking a forest. So what's implied in this comment? Think about a forest. A forest has so many different smells. It has the after fog smell. It has the after rain smell. It has the bright summery day smell. So what the commentator through this comment is suggesting is that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of aromas and taste in this tea.
The warm leaves before adding water had a slight hint of leather for another taster. And then the tea liquor is incredibly smooth and creamy. For her, it's got a warming set of energetics.
So a hint of leather for this commentator in the smell, but when the commentator tastes it, creamy, smooth, and dense,
Warming.
and warming. Yes. I love the totality of this comment. I get the leather, by the way, pre-tasting. Once you taste, you don't taste leather, but you certainly beforehand, and this is what's great about doing this type of evaluation, because what's happening here is you're going to get just the smell of it tells you you're going to get a lot of variety within this cup. And that's why, let's go back to the very first comment where the commentator said, from the smell, floral and vegetal, it seemed like two different teas mixed together.
The dry heated leaves smelled fresh to another taster, crisp, with hints of something syrupy. And then the wet leaves were vegetal. And then the first taste impression for her was of honey. It was smooth with an aftertaste remaining.
Smooth with an aftertaste remaining. The first taste for this commentator was a hint of honey. I'm going to sit on that comment right now because in China, they remark how often Hukai raw black produces this inherent sweetness. And that's so different from so many other raw blacks. This one, not only is it the creaminess, which this commentator referred to, but also that sweetness. Let's go back to the first parts of the comment because I like those too.
Fresh.
Fresh, yep.
Crisp with hints of something syrupy.
Fresh, crisp, with hints of something syrupy.
And that was on the dry heated leaves that she was getting all of that.
Dry heated leaves, thank you. And I love this because this shows you were really, really thoughtful and careful as you smelled those dry heated leaves, and you sussed out that syrupy, which you then tasted out as a honeyness. So this is related. So here's why we go through these exercises. You're illustrating perfectly why we go through these exercises, because the dry leaves, when heated, reveal a lot. But sometimes it's hard to draw that line between the dry leaves and the tea liquor. Well, you've drawn that line, which means that you all are really deeply appreciating each of these steps. Great, great job. What was the middle comment? I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting just because it's it was so different from the impression from the from the dry heated leaves. When it with the wet leaves were vegetal.
Ah, also beautiful. Wet leaves were beautiful. So from the dry leaves, where we had the little syrupy, we gravitated to vegetal in the wet leaves, and then in the taste, we had little honey and creaminess, and smoothness. And though you didn't use the word density, I'm going to add that on. Creamy, smooth, and dense. There is substance. So you are appreciating at each step how this is all leading into this cup.
Another taster observes a gentle, growing, full mouth astringency.
Gentle, rolling, full mouth astringency. what I love, did I not?
Gentle growing.
Oh,
hormones.
growing, that's even better. Rolling, silly. Growing, really good. So what I especially like about this is the word growing, because when I did my first initial taste, I actually said to myself, not out loud, obviously, I didn't want to give this away. My God, there's almost no astringency to this. And then by the time, and that's why I went to the third, you notice I had to take it a third time because I'm thinking, where did that astringency go to? And now, as you said, it is growing. And now I taste it more. But that being said, that's the other amazing thing. People who drink Hokai raw blacks come away with, wow, there is almost no astringency to this. And when they say almost no astringency, what they really mean is what you said. It's light and growing.
Another taster observes small sips aspirated with a lot of air give him a sense of becoming one with the fog. It's perfect for this dewy, misty weather we're having here today.
Love it. This commentator aspirated several small aspirations as he's taking sips, this tea, and it immediately brought an image of fog and linked it with the fog and mist and wetness, dampness of what today is here in California, Northern California.
Another taster on energetic says for her it's refreshing, warming, high in the body, and leaves her with a reassuring glow.
Refreshing, warming, high in the body, leaves this commentator with a reassuring glow. This is an energetics comment. Love this energetics comment. When I first tasted it, again, I think because I was so astounded and was still thinking and focused so much on where the heck did the astringency go to, that I kind of missed some of the early signals of the energetics. But then, as I took the second and third sip, I started to feel that warmth in the upper body. Yes, I definitely feel that warmth. And by the way, that is connected with the fact that this is ancient tree. Remember, we've seen ancient trees seem to violate norms for Chinese herbal assumptions about tea. This is close to green tea, so one would usually think cooling. Remember, we had otherworldly, which is an ancient tree white tea, and that's almost always, white tea is almost always associated with cooling. And everybody's comment came back, oh my God, it's warming. It's warming because it's ancient tree. Ancient tree mediates or changes the way the leaves present.
Another taster finds that as the heat dissipated, the astringency became more noticeable, covering particularly the top of the tongue, and then going all the way down to the upper throat. And then there was a feeling of warmth and nourishing, slight sweetness lingering in the mouth.
Great, great comments. So at the start, astringency goes all the way back into the throat. And in addition to it going in the back of the throat, and that's as it's cooling down. That's the commentator noted. As it's cooling down, that astringency is increasing. There is that slight hint of sweetness. Did I miss anything?
And then it feels warming
Ah,
and
that's right.
nourishing.
And it feels warming and nourishing. Then it feels warming and nourishing. Great, great comment. And that really is encapsulating what all of you are saying in bits and pieces. Love that evaluation. And by the way, when I drink my cooled down version, I also very much note the increase in astringency. Yes.
Another taster says, the cooling after each sip in the mouth keeps building, and yet each subsequent sip floods my mouth with this forest sweetness. High energetic response in my body, the hands are tingling, and my mind feels clarity and curiosity.
So there is
Some cooling from the sips.
cooling from the sips, and then a building warmth in the body and an energizing feeling and clarity in the mind. And I like this comment. And again, I direct you to the fact that this is ancient tree. Ancient trees are magical. I shouldn't use that word. Let me strike that one from the
They
record.
might be.
Well, they might be. Nonetheless, we're supposed to be using words that everybody can rock and get into. And you guys are doing it correctly because you're giving me relative feelings and relative and relevant, I should say, taste associations and smell associations. Great job.
For another taster, she says it's really good for the storm and her stomach. It's calming in every way. It's fascinating to her.
Really good for this listener for the storm in her stomach. And just so surprised that this would have this type of effect. And again, I love the fact you're picking this up. And the reason being ancient tree. Ancient tree just does something different with the body. And it is not that cooling that would be suggested by not loose leaf, but by youthful tree raw black. So the question, the implied question here is, how would youthful raw black react energetically? Typically it reacts like green tea. So you feel a coolingness. You don't get all of these other subtleties. The stringency of youthful raw black, very, very astringent. And hence, it takes longer for the youthful raw black to mellow out in a cake or in loose leaf form. This is, I believe, 2 years old or 3 years old, and it's already extremely, extremely mellow. And it's ancient tree and it's hook high. Those are the two elements that lead it to be this way.
The energetics for another taster, warming and stimulating. And she agrees on the astringency comment another made about the astringency going into the back of the throat, for her also the back of her palate. Just a different sensation from the other raw blacks that she recalls.
So this commentator has a different sensation from the other raw blacks that she's had here. And part of it is the cooling sensation that again morphs into a warmth within the system. It's just, what did I miss from that?
That this is just a different sensation from the others.
Okay.
Energetics for her, warming and stimulating.
Warming and stimulating,
Yeah.
that was the thing. Yeah, this is definitely warming and stimulating for me. It's so warming. Actually, to tell you the truth, my ears feel warm from drinking this. Now, if none of your ears feel warm, don't feel that something's wrong with you. Nothing wrong with you. Remember, we're all a little different, but that's where I'm feeling my warmth.
There are some supporters of the notion of magic here. Now, there are comments on the magic of the tree in the grove. One commenter says, well, it seems as if there were magic anywhere, it would be in a secret grove. Absolutely.
I love that comment. So this is support for the term magic. And I love this particular comment. If there were going to be magic anywhere, where in the world else would it be except in a secret grove? Here.
Are there any other ancient tree raw blacks in the shop?
Have you been doing a good job at gathering ancient tree raw blacks and supplying the shop with enough for us to have some variety? And the answer is yes. We do have other ancient tree raw blacks in the shop. Most of them are raw blacks, by the way. We have no youthful raw blacks. So that is nothing under 100 years old. We do have old tree and we have ancient tree. One of the oldest of the ancient tree is a cake we have called Newman. But I'd say it's about a 50-50 between old and ancient that we have with others.
Someone notes that the last time he tasted this particular tea was July 31st of 2021, so a year and a half ago. He gives it a higher rating today compared with then. He thinks due to his evolution as a tea taster and his brewing technique being better now than it was.
Oh, I love it when teas get higher ratings. Many of you have developed some very sophisticated rating systems. And I love the fact that you're doing this because that means you're keeping track, you're thinking about how you're tasting it, you're in tea rhythm. So this particular commentator last rated this tea in July of 2021 and gave it a lesser rating than he's giving it today. And as part of the explanation, it isn't just that the tea itself may have changed. The commentator says he himself has evolved, changed, become a better brewer of tea, and probably a little bit more conscientious of tea rhythm as he's going through the tea. Love that comment. We all go through this same journey. And even Xiaobei and I, every time we think, oh, we've come to the end of the road, each year we are proven wrong. And we like being proven wrong. And now we expect to be proven wrong year in and year out. Yes.
Jeremy notes, with the ancient trees, there are also ancient mycelium networks, and she suspects fungi underground doing their work, and she included a nice link for everybody. Thanks, Jeremy, much appreciated.
Yeah, ancient tree forest, and for those of you who've been with us to an ancient tree forest in Isla Mountains, it's clear that there is interaction between the plants within the forest, obviously ancient mycelium at work in the forest, and that's probably one of the main things, although not having definitive scientific proof, I'm reluctant to say what I'm about to say. So let's put a footnote by this. We don't have proof for what you just said, but we have the sense that that's true. And whenever we're in these type of forests, and we always take a look around at the other plants. By the way, Hukai has one of the largest ancient groves known so far in Yunnan. And so that would mean obviously in China. They have a tremendous number of these ancient trees.
Another taster says this reminds her of Paul Stamets' documentary about the relationship between fungi and trees, forests.
So this reminds another participant, Paul Stamets has done, and who is Paul Stamets? I'll explain who he is. He is the leading researcher on all sorts of mushrooms in the world. He's not the only researcher, but he's the leading one. And he's done many ancient, many projects for a number of years related to mushrooms and fungi. And he's actually currently working on a project I can't talk much about, but I'm aware of it. And the end result is hoping to get FDA approval for a product a mushroom product to be on the market to help people. So good comment.
And another commenter also shares a recently published book, Regenesis by George Monbiot. It looks like a French name, so I'm going to say it as if it's a French name. Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate having more info. We'll check it out.
Great. Yes, I appreciate the sharing of all of these resources, because one of the things, whether anybody else on the broadcast reads any of these things, you know what? I get them, I read them, because what we feel here is a deep connection to the tea plant and to the plants in these types of forests. And we're trying to learn from a scientific basis or a scientific approach what the actual effects are on plants in forest on each other. And we think that this has an effect on the end result of the brewing. And we also think, so let me back up a bit, because there was one thing I was going to tell you this morning, and now's the perfect time to tell you, because Chinese scientists have been spending a lot of time trying to determine, okay, what's in this tea? That's what chemical elements are in this tea. How does it affect humans? Which one of those elements are we going to be able to isolate and give to humans and make them live 1,000,000 years longer? Point being, while all this research is going on, why aren't we seeing more articles about it? One of the reasons I suspect is because this is such a truly complicated subject. When you're doing monoclonal fields, you take away quite a bit of complexity, don't you? You put them in a field, okay, you measure the soil, okay, the soil's got these constituents. This varietal has this characteristics. It's this amount of rainfall. Okay, here's the result. And even with those results, are we very far along the path in our understanding? No, we have some understanding and we see a lot of articles, but there's still a lot more to go. We know this. There is a huge amount more to go. And I have a feeling it's because of what you are referring to in terms of the underground connections between the various plants. And in these forests, I ask you this: is the tree that produces any of this, are these trees, back up, making sure that we're talking about ancient tree here, are these trees genetically the same? And the answer is absolutely not. This is not monoclonal development. These grew from seeds, and every seed is genetically different. So you have all these complicated interactions, and that is what makes it, I believe, so hard to really have definition. We have personal definition, and you gave it to me today because you talked about the specialty of the energetics. So that's personal proof that there's something different going on with this. Yes.
Just final tasting comments from people. One person says second cup was just as good as the first. Yum. And somebody else is now detecting that honey scent from the cooling liquor and the legacy of a modest astringency in the front of the mouth. Another says she's now getting the creaminess that others mentioned earlier. She loves this complex, delicious tea.
Love all of these comments. The fact, and out of those comments, I want to pick one in particular that's really, really important and has relevance to you all. This is a tea that can be brewed many times, and it's every bit as good time after time. I gave in the instructions 3 potential brewings, but you could actually squeeze out more. Ancient tree has a lot in it, and therefore the ability to squeeze out more is definitely there. All right, I'm assuming, yep, as usual, over talked. That's par for the course. So yes.
Nope, we're
Oh,
good.
Okay. So this is the end of this series. And I think you now see why we put a raw black with the greens, because they're related in terms of steps. They also are both rich in catechins that have been unconverted. So this is the true reason that we put these two together, so that you could get this sense. This, in my mind, has a deeper flavor than the green, but it's still a relative. It's still within the playing field. All right, enough about secret growth today. What are we going to do next week? Let me think about this a minute. Hey, let's do yellow teas starting next week. Let's start with veiled next week. We have a fabulous set of 3 yellow teas for the next 3 weeks. And these will blow you away in terms of flavor profiles. And as we go through the process, you'll also be surprised. So we're looking forward to sharing this with you all. Now, you've got assignments, work assignments, homework assignments for this week. You got to remain healthy. So take good care of yourself this week. Make sure your energy levels are high, and really look forward to seeing everybody next Saturday. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye, take care.